The single biggest problem in the health industry today is that everybody thinks there's a magic pill, peptide, or protocol that's going to solve all of their problems. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge advocate for these things. In fact, I post videos about them every single day. But if you want the results that you see on social media, there's still tons of things that have to happen behind the scenes. In this video, I'm going to be covering the 7 most impactful things I do every day that are non-medication, non-pharmaceutical, non-prescription, that are going to make the biggest impact on overall physical and mental output. Most of us who become enthusiasts in the health and wellness space all have common goals in mind. Some of us want to be able to perform better at work and have sharper cognitive output. Some of us want to build lean and muscular physiques. Others of us want to be so healthy from our own internal backing that we don't need the American medical system. Over more than the last decade, I've turned my routine into a living laboratory, trial and error, adding and replacing different things to give myself the best possible output. The crazy part is, doing just these 7 things with no medical intervention will still outperform 99% of people. Nail these 7 things, and any treatment you want to add on top of it is going to be lights out. Let's get started. Before we do, it's important to note that I'm not a doctor and nothing I say in this video should be misconstrued with medical advice. And if you're going to follow any of the practices we talk about in today's video, make sure you're only doing so under the guidance of a direct supervising physician who is a specialist in this field. Now, here we go. I'm going to skip the ultra basics in this video because a lot of you guys don't need to hear that. You don't need to hear that you need at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you didn't know that already, I'm 220 pounds. I need to eat at least 220 grams of protein. We're going to skip the diet, the exercise, the basics. I'm going to give you guys the real niche things that I've noticed made the biggest impact on me and my well-being. The first one I'm going to note for you guys is the first thing I do every single day, which is get outside, get morning sun, and add meditation. This is a life-changing practice. For those of you like me who work intense hours, it will absolutely scramble your brain after years and years and years of repetition. To keep my focus where it needs to be, although I utilize things like CMAC, Selank, and other cognitive enhancements like Alpha GPC and Lion's Mane Mushroom, I also stick to a very regimented meditation process. As many mornings as I can, I go right outside as soon as I wake up, don't look at the phone, or if you have to look at the phone, keep that to the most minimal time possible. For me, that's clicking off my alarm and making sure there's no emergency texts. After that, I get outside between the hours of 7 and 9 a.m. This is the optimal time to be in sunlight. This is when you're going to get the most red light, which if you watch the last video, we know is going to charge our mitochondrial optimization. But more importantly, it's also going to be in a time where that sunlight isn't going to damage our skin. What this does from a brain optimization standpoint is it sets our circadian rhythm. It lets the body know that when the sun comes up, it's time to wake up. When the sun goes down, it's time to go to bed. If you didn't know already, sleep is the single biggest impact that is going to decide your well-being. How quickly you age, your rest, your recovery, everything about the human body usually depends on how well you're sleeping. When the photons and the sunlight in the morning hit our eyes, it tells our brains to stop producing melatonin, followed by kicking on a natural wave of cortisol. Cortisol, I thought that was the stress hormone. That doesn't sound good. Why would I want that first thing in the morning? We actually want our cortisol to be spiked first thing in the morning and then gradually taper down. Where a lot of people get messed up is they spike their cortisol too late in the day and then they have a problem falling asleep. For me, I like to do my highest stress activities before noon because that's when my cortisol is spiked and that's when my brain is operating at its highest output. This morning sunlight is also going to move our brain waves into the alpha and theta state, which turns on our parasympathetic nervous system and lowers our heart rate. This becomes mega helpful when it comes to lowering inflammatory markers, which, as we know, inflammation is the cause of nearly all chronic disease across the United States. When I get to spend anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes sitting in the morning sunlight, meditating, I'll either do something like Joe Dispenza, Bob Proctor, something of this nature to just get me in the right headspace, I feel immeasurably better. And I follow that by usually a 10 to 15 minute ab routine just to get my heart rate up after syncing it into the new state. As any of you who have stressful work lives know, it can become incredibly mentally taxing to just dive into a work day immediately from the time that you wake up. All of a sudden there's problems and emergencies. Those things are still going to be there in about 20 minutes, but your ability to handle them drastically changes if you can follow this routine. Next on the list is intermittent fasting. Now, there's been some debates on how healthy this is for certain people. I've found that in my research, it's actually healthier for men than it is for women, because for women, it can fluctuate hormones and have some other imbalances. One of the biggest areas that I think people overwhelm themselves is they try to make too many decisions every day. This gives me a ton of mental edge. It also helps me sleep better at night, because if I know my last meal is going to be before 6 p.m. at night, I'm now getting about 4 hours before I go to bed to digest properly and not go to bed on a full stomach. What I've noticed the most on my whoop of when I get bad recovery usually comes from when I eat too late in the day or I eat too many calories too late in the day. There's several studies out there right now that support the idea that you get an increase in BDNF, brain-derived nootropic factor, when we don't eat for 14 plus hours. So that last 2 to 4 hours of the day that I'm not eating, which is anywhere from 10 a.m. to noon, because I stopped eating at 6 p.m. the day before, I'm getting a huge spike of that BDNF and my brain is operating better. This is when I'm doing my most strenuous work anyway, so everything lines up, or the most difficult part of my day is when I have the highest cognitive output. Moving into what I do to break the fast, the practice I've been doing for the last 4 going on 5 years, and that is 2 pounds of red meat every single day. If you know me, you know I eat ground beef and a lot of it. And not only is it because I love the taste, it also removes another decision that I don't have to make. You're going to notice a big theme of this video is eliminating decision fatigue. It's one of the biggest silent killers. I know exactly what I'm going to eat every single day, and I have known for the last 4 years. Unless you're trying to be a stage-level bodybuilder, there's really no benefit to pounding dried chicken, egg whites, and a couple rice cakes every day. I personally have experienced myself getting in equal, if not better shape on a ground beef diet, mixing in things like bananas as well as raw honey that are all packed with way more nutrients, and I'm going to get 99% of the same value as long as my macros line up. With the ground beef diet, I get nearly all of the vitamins that almost everybody's deficient in. Iron, zinc, selenium, vitamin B complex, and more natural creatine. These also just so happen to be all of the raw building blocks that our mitochondria specifically needs to operate at its highest level. I'm not an advocate for plant-based diet, keto diet, or any of these other fad diets. I think almost all of them skip out on the essential building blocks that we need for our bodies to function at their highest level. A huge area of impact when it comes to meals as well is number 4, which is no seed oils. I talk about this a lot, and I cannot tell you how big of a difference it makes just in the inflammation in the body alone. But the single biggest thing I noticed was that as soon as I did this, I stopped getting sunburn. I know there's going to be a couple of you in the comment section who are going to give me some reason as to why that's not true, but ask anybody who has made this shift, anybody who's really found a way to cut out seed oils, you don't get sunburned anymore. And the reason for it is that seed oils, if you didn't know, oxidate the cells in our body, specifically our skin cells. When you oxidate these cells, it becomes easier for UV light to penetrate and cook and burn the cells. This is similar to the way a grease trap or a grease fryer works. You fill it with these oils that add extra oxidation, and it makes these things burn from the inside out. This drastically changed my skin as well as my inflammatory markers on my blood work. They dropped significantly, and if there's one thing that I have found makes a difference in my body, especially on the efficacy of the things that I use outside of this, like peptides, like supplements, like different pharmaceuticals, it is that inflammation is the killer of all medical treatment, and it will always be the cause of all chronic disease. Moving on in my day, because I seem to have just been saying these things in the order that I do them, is digestion walks mixed with grounding. I paired these two together. They could very well be separate topics, but I do them at the same time. I am lucky enough to have a big patch of grass outside of my front yard and my backyard, and every time I finish any meal, I take off my socks, my shoes, whatever I'm doing, and I go walk around in my grass for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. I occupy this time usually by taking calls, because I can just pop an AirPod in, I don't have to look at my phone, and I can still just bask in the sunlight, but also feel the connection to the ground. Now, this might sound like a little bit of woo-woo medicine, but I promise this works. The part that's absolutely undebatable is the benefits of digestion walks after our meals. If you want to talk about the highest leverage thing we can do to lower inflammation, to improve our digestion and the health and quality of our gut, there is nothing better than after your meals, just give it anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes is all you really need of moderate paced walking. This is going to break up the food that you eat, and if you're like me, I eat some pretty large meals because I only eat them in a small period of time. That extra movement in the stomach creates a world of difference, especially from an aesthetic standpoint more than anything. It eliminates a ton of the bloating as well as the strain that we're going to put on our gut in the first place. This is also another direct correlation I see to increases on my Whoop score and my HRV, is when I'm doing my digestion walks after my meals versus the days that I don't have time to fit it in, I notice drastic differences. So much so as though my recovery will sometimes go from the 90s down to the 50s or 60s just from this one variable change. The other key component to these digestion walks is that I'm doing so in bare feet in my grass. If you haven't started grounding yet, it's a bit of an adjustment period, but you do start to feel this connection. We spend our entire lives walking around on thick rubber soles, concrete, living inside surrounded by Wi-Fi signals and electricity. The human body was never meant for any of this. Our bodies are like beacons for energy. If you didn't know already, anything we come in contact with, there's an energetic connection we make with it. When our bare skin touches the ground, it acts like a wire, and those electrons coming from the Earth start coursing through our body. This process works to positively charge our reactive oxygen species, our ROSs, which we know in the body as free radicals. If we balance off that electrical frequency, we can taper down the negative effects of those ROSs. Now, you don't just have to take my anecdotal evidence on this. The Journal of Environmental and Public Health also did a study on this, proving on paper that grounding systemically lowers inflammation, drops muscle tension, and shifts our nervous system into deep automated recovery. If you think about the complexities of what else you have to do in the day, standing outside in the grass and walking around should be at the easiest of the list. If you live in an apartment or you don't have access to grass nearby, make it a point to go outside at the end of your day. We're in the summer right now, the sun goes down late. At the end of your day, go find a park, go walk your dog, go find somewhere where there's grass that you can touch the ground. Moving on to number 6, we're now in the afternoon of my day, which is usually when I do this activity. And I will say before I get to these last two are going to be the biggest impact. Number 6 being the biggest in terms of the physical output, number 7 being the biggest in terms of mental. Number 6 being actual intense exercise. Now, I know this might sound rudimentary and basic, but a lot of people get this wrong. A lot of people are going in and doing 4 sets, 12 reps, and they feel like they're having a good squeeze, they're getting a sweat. The biggest difference is getting a sweat and getting a pump is not the same as exercising till failure. Now, this doesn't mean that you just have to go ballistic till absolute failure on every single set, although whatever intensity is going to be the highest for you is typically what works the best. For me, what I've noticed what works the best is starting off with some heavy movements, whether that's compound, whether that be bench press, squat, rows, anything that I can do an extreme amount of force exertion, and then finishing with an extreme compression and contraction of my muscle group. But I do this to such a degree where I'm physically in pain by the end of it. Now, a lot of people don't get to this point because a lot of people are afraid to make noises when they work out or make faces or audibly draw attention to themselves. This can be a really weird system to navigate because in the gym, you don't want to be the guy who's grunting like a freaking gorilla or setting off the lunk alarm in Planet Fitness if any of you go there. But it does make a tremendous difference, and you'll know if you're actually going to a level of failure or intensity if you are creating some sort of noise or some sort of audible sound, because you don't get to that level of force exertion without getting to that audible level of sound. So I know I've gotten to the right level if I'm really trying to suppress any noises, but at the end, I just can't help but kind of grunt it out. And again, this may sound trivial to you guys, but working out to this level of exertion will make a radical difference, not only in your physical appearance, but also the endorphins and dopamine that gets released when you go that hard feels incredible afterwards. Really, this becomes the difference between mechanical failure and mental failure. Did you stop because you thought you should stop, or did you stop because your body physically could not do another rep? Finishing it off with something that has been new for me that I have found tremendous benefit from, and that is community and social engagement. Obviously, I have a social media platform. I'm not talking about this or online friends or answering comments or DMs. I'm talking about real face-to-face interaction with a tight-knit group of people that you can actually form some sort of connection with. So the other side of this is, I'm lucky enough now and over the last year where I've really developed a tighter-knit group of friends. I feel like for the first time in a long time, I actually have people that I can then talk to about things, that I think people that actually have my back and support my dreams and support my ambitions, but I can also talk to them on a level where I don't feel like I'm bragging, right? Because a lot of times what happens when you're trying to explain your ambitions to people who might not be on the same wavelength as you, and that's totally fine, they're entitled to their own lifestyle, but to them, they're almost like, oh, okay, Mr. Big Shot, you want to build a $100 million company. $100 million to them is just unfathomable. And it's less about, how much money is the company making, but in order to have the impact that I want my company to have, that's the amount of revenue that would be required. So it becomes a really positive endeavor when you finally meet the people that have done the things you want to do. I'm really lucky now today to talk to some of the best doctors on the planet who are amazing at what they do, and some of the most successful business people on the planet who have built and sold multiple companies for over hundreds of millions of dollars. And now that I can have people like that I can really build with and grow with, have these conversations with, and feel like I can actually be myself around, wow, does it make a difference on your mental standing and the ability that you're able to formulate your ideas and execute them. Not only that, but it certainly doesn't hurt having people who can act as mentors. You also want to be able to give something back to other people, so find someone to mentee. This doesn't have to be a whole Mr. Miyagi relationship, but if there's people in your friend group or your circle who you also notice are on a similar wave as you and they're looking to get more out of their life, it feels good to get help, but man, does it feel better to be able to give help to other people who could use it from you. What I'd really like to know is if any of you are experiencing other things that you find are making huge impacts in your life, I want you to tell me about them, because I want to be able to not only try them for myself, but share that experience experience because I want to create this community where all of us are leveling up and winning together. Guys, if you're interested in improving your body, improving your mind, I post 2 videos like this every single week where I talk about some way to level up as a human being. If you don't want to miss it, hit the subscribe button, turn on post notifications so that you don't miss a single one, and I will see you guys in the next episode.